then never come back. Leave only after you sign the divorce papers. In response to my wish to go back home, my husband showered me with verbal abuse. I gladly signed the divorce papers, finalizing the divorce on the same day. I wanted to get away from my husband that much. After submitting the divorce papers, I reunited with my father at my childhood home. I told him the process of the divorce. My father listened to my story calmly, showing no anger. Then he picked up the phone to call someone and soon stood up saying, "Let's go." I also got up to follow him, and we both got into the car to retaliate against my ex-husband together with my father. My name is Iris Smith. I'm a 51-year-old housewife. I met Tom, my husband, during our college days and we got married. Now he has climbed up the corporate ladder to a prestigious position at a trading company and is about to become an executive director soon. Our marital life was never smooth sailing. Well, it might have been for him, but for me, it was like living in hell. Because I had to endure pain every day. He was a hypocrite and outwardly seemed really nice. He was even praised by others as the ideal husband and was celebrated daily. Nobody seemed willing to believe his true colors. That was understandable. No one would think that someone with such a respectable title could be committing domestic violence. Even I, before our marriage, didn't notice it. It would be impossible for strangers to see through him. Because inside our home, Tom was arrogant, and I started to see his true colors after our marriage. When we were dating, he was really kind and even taught me things gently when I couldn't manage. He was such a considerate person. But after marriage, he became a completely different person. Taking advantage of the fact that we were married, he began to treat me as his property.
Hey, what is this awful food?
Sorry, I thought I got the seasoning right.
I'll make excuses, he would reply. Just voicing a small opinion would make me yell, and I would intimidate you daily with loud noises.
After a while, I became scared to even voice my opinion. As long as I didn't resist, it would be fine. I kept telling myself this, and now I fully obey him. I used to have friends and try to contact them for advice at times, but he sensed it and astonishingly shut down any communication with my friends. My friends received messages from him, skillfully intercepting and cutting off my sows.
And no one but me would take care of a failure like you, he said.
Just listen to what I said quietly. He said this, and I was forced to live a life in a prison called home. If I tried to take any action, it would immediately be stopped, and I couldn't even seek help from the neighbors, let alone my friends. If I attempted to make a move, he would invariably threaten me. Invariably, he threatened me saying, "Is that okay? Do you know who you are able to live thanks to? Without me, how do you plan to survive without any relatives? If you can say it, then say it." But even faced with this, I had no way to retaliate. As Tom said, I had no reliable support. My mother had passed away, and although my father was alive, he wasn't someone I could easily rely on. But to be precise, I didn't know where he was. In my childhood, he had left my mother and me behind. I had neither the economic means to live alone nor anyone to rely on. Gradually, I began to think that it might be impossible to escape this place. But an incident made me feel the limit of this life. Piton took out his frustration of losing and gambling on me. Facing his unreasonable demands, my patience reached its limit, and I decided to convey my desire to return to my mother's home, which she had left for me. Please, I don't mind if it's for a short while. Please, I don't mind if it's for a short while. I just want to go home. I just want to visit my mother's grave. The truth was that I wanted to get away from him, even if it was just for a little while. But of course, I couldn't say that honestly. It wasn't that I didn't want to pay my respects to my mother, but more than anything, I wanted to escape from this house. That was my utmost desire. No, what are you going to do by showing your face at a place where a dead person resides? Gutwax, they don't even exist there. Stop with these occult-like things. There's no need to go back. He said this without even making eye contact with me or reading the financial newspaper. I was left speechless at his demeanor. His treatment of me seemed as if he doesn't even regard me as a human being anymore. Maybe I can't carry on with this person. That's what I thought. Then I felt something inside me snap, like a breaking sound. Understood, I responded with a cold tone to his comment, which must have irritated him. He furrowed his brows, shifting his gaze from the financial newspaper to me. What was that tone just now? You think it's okay to talk to me like that? I no longer consider you a person, I responded. What did you say? He asked. It's norms. I wouldn't mind if something happened to me at the hands of this person now. Whatever happens to me, it no longer matters. If I can go back to my mother's place, that would be fine, I thought. Perhaps I had prepared myself to end everything inside me. That's why I could take such a bold step, standing firmly in front of an approaching Tom without backing down. Deep inside, I was extremely scared. This is almost my first act of defiance. It's only natural to instinctively fear an opponent whose actions are unpredictable. But I won't lose. Absolutely won't be manipulated by him anymore. I would like to go back to my family home. I stared at him with a straightforward gaze, without averting my eyes from his glaring look, making sure not to show any signs of fear. I acted bravely. Tom was indeed infuriated. He slammed a financial newspaper on the table, pulling out a piece of paper from the shelf where his work documents were stored. Then he declared, "Never come back. File for divorce before you go." He shouted angrily, thrusting the divorce papers at me. He must have thought I would panic in response. There's no way that would happen. Rather, it's a joy. Deep inside, I was thrilled, almost jubilantly happy. But that absolutely must not be revealed. It's a scene I have long wished for. Finally, I can be free. While maintaining a poker face, I replied with a single word, understood, and signed the divorce papers right away, urging him to sign as well. Seeing my reaction, he seemed momentarily startled, clearly shaken by this unexpected development. It was a turn of events I had long awaited. There is no way I would regret this decision now. Thus our marriage came to an end, and the divorce was finalized that very day. I reverted back to my maiden name, Iris Brown. Just immediately after the divorce was finalized, I flew back to my family home. The house had completely deteriorated since my mother passed away, covered in dust and hardly in a livable condition. It seems impossible to clean this place up within a day. I sighed heavily, standing in front of the house, when suddenly I heard a thud of something dropping behind me. "Oh, you're alive." As I turned around to see what it was, there stood a gentleman dressed in a gray suit. I racked my brain to recall who this familiar person was, but he embraced me tightly without minding my confusion, shedding tears of joy at our reunion. "I'm glad. I heard the news of your death and couldn't sit still. I finally found you. I've always wanted to see you. I'm really sorry for not being there for you back then." The elderly man continued to apologize, mistaking me for someone else, tears streaming down his face. But the strength in his arms as he embraced me felt as though he was confirming my existence, and from that warmth, memories of my childhood resurfaced. Could it be Dad? Perhaps surprised by my words, the old man reacted visibly, slowly letting go of me. There still, with tears tracking down his cheeks, he intently looked at my face. "Could it be? Are you Iris?" the elderly man mutters as he gazes at my face and body, scrutinizing my whole being. I don't remember his voice or face, but I recognize the sensation and smell of his embrace. Instinctively, I realized he's my biological father, Mark Anderson. "I knew it, Dad. I wanted to see you for so long," I exclaimed as I realized he was my real father, and I hugged him once again, reuniting with the father I had been apart from for so long. I didn't know his whereabouts, and the only thing I remembered was his first name. My mom adamantly refused to tell me his surname, making it impossible to find any trace of him. "I'm glad you look well," he murmured, momentarily stunned when he realized I wasn't his wife. But he soon embraced me warmly, accepting me right away. I'm relieved to see you looking well, Dad," I replied. "I'm sorry I left you and your mom," he stammered. My father had run away with my mother during wartime to raise me, despite successfully hiding in a place in the countryside where no one knew them. His parents, who belonged to the wealthy dynasty, did not let him be. For I was old enough to understand the world. It seemed he was forcibly taken back home. "Mom always worried about you," I mentioned. "Oh," he muttered, clearly taken aback. "When I was a child, I asked my mother a question. Don't you resent Dad?" "Why would I?" she asked. "Well, he left you, didn't he? It's really sad that he went somewhere leaving you alone," I argued, puffing my cheeks as I spoke. My mother gently stroked my head, smiling at my innocence and tactics. "Iris, your mom isn't alone," she reassured me. "Huh?" I asked, not quite understanding. "Your father left you with me. He's not the bad guy. If there is anything to resent, it might be these times." She explained, her gaze drifting towards the garden visible from the veranda, a sad smile on her face. "If it weren't for these times, we might still be together. That's when I believe. So, Iris, if I can meet your father again in the next life, I want to be with him as a proper couple this time." Even as a child, I was moved to realize how deeply my mother loved my father, and how her feelings for him hadn't changed over time. When I conveyed this to my father, he collapsed on the spot, weeping uncontrollably and rubbing his head on the ground. "Dad," I whispered, rubbing his back until he had cried himself out. Seeing you here without your mom showing up, it means she has passed away, hasn't it? Pete nodding silently in agreement. I led him to the family altar where we paid our respects to my mother for the first time in a while.
Me too, Amis. I want to see you again, he managed between sobs.
Not at all. Don't worry about it, I hurried to reassure him.
Seeing you here without your mom showing up, it means she's passed away, hasn't it?
I finally came to see you. I whispered silently to my mother at the altar, feeling as if she was welcoming me back with a smile. It felt like that. Picture, as I was updating my father about my recent events in my life, he noticed the ring on my left ring finger. By the way, have you gotten married? He asked, drawing attention to the symbol of love between Tom and I, a ring that now felt more like handcuffs. As I removed it in front of him, a sense of disgust washed over me. I was, but I just got divorced, I confessed. I'm divorced? What happened? He asked, worry evident in his voice. I hesitated, uncertain if I should share the truth with him. But I worried that he might not believe me, or worse, side with Tom and urge me to reconsider the divorce. Anxiety swirled within me. My father seemed to sense my distress. He placed a hand on my hand, comforting me with a gentle stroke. I might be an unreliable father, but can we talk? I'm on your side, he assured me. Tears flowed naturally at his warmth and kind words, something I hadn't experienced throughout my marriage. It's okay to lean on someone. XXX. I felt as if my mother was encouraging me from afar, giving me the strength to tell my father about the abuse I'd endured from Tom. After I finished my story, my father remained silent for a while, not uttering a word. Had I made a mistake in telling him? Doubts began to plague me, regret creeping in as I questioned my decision. Seeing my distress, my father suddenly stood up. Iris, come with me, he demanded, urgency in his voice. Where to? It's fine then. The father who told me to follow him with a word called for a pickup and hopped into the car with me. I'd no clue where he was taking me, as he was on the phone with someone. Hello, long time no see. Hey, I need to talk to you about your son. I am heading home now. Could you come over? Sorry for the inconvenience. It seems like he invited someone over to the house, but who could it possibly be? It's been a while, Smith. You look well, Anderson, he said. And it's been a long time, Iris. Joni's, the person who showed up at my father's house, was unexpectedly Tom's father, Jones. Why was he here? Did my father know him from before? As I was confused and unable to understand, my father chuckled awkwardly. I'm sorry, I was a bit irritated after hearing this story and couldn't explain this situation properly. Actually, Anderson and I are drinking buddies. We met through a friend's introduction. I had heard that he had a daughter, but I never imagined it would be you, Iris. I never expected this. Owns with his hearty laugh, and my gentle, manly father looked quite the opposite, yet they seemed very close, something I would have never guessed. In fact, who could have predicted this turn of events? I watched the two of them chatting cheerfully, feeling quite stunned. Listen, miss, my father cleared his throat with a cough. The reason I called Smith here is to discuss something about Iris's ex-husband, your son.
About Tom's, yes? What happened? Did something happen between him and Iris? He seemed to be unaware of the circumstances.
Honestly, he and his wife were very nice people, and it was hard to discuss the circumstances of the divorce. But with the encouragement of my father and late mother, I seemed resolved to convey everything. Jones listened quietly until I finished speaking, but as soon as the conversation ended, anger was evident on his face. Did my son really do something like that? As he inquired with an imposed spinner, I stepped back but shook my head vigorously in agreement. Hearing this, Jones turned to my father with a pleading look, seeking affirmation of the truth. Once my father nodded slowly, Jones's face turned increasingly red.
Why didn't you consult us earlier? Do you think we were unreliable? Did you assume we would favor our son?
Wondered if I had misheard Jones's words and tentatively turned my gaze towards him.
His face blended anger with a sense of guilt, showing concern for me.
Since the day you married into our family, we have treated you as our daughter. There's no way we would be biased towards your son, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder and looking at me with a kind gaze. At that moment, I realized that Jones and his wife were people who would genuinely listen to me, and tears flowed incessantly. I couldn't help but cry, feeling a mix of happiness and guilt filling my heart. I should have told them sooner. I should have sought help. I shouldn't have thought of giving up. Realizing the importance of communicating one's opinion to others once again, I expressed my gratitude to him after regaining my composure. Watching this, my father patted my back and Jones continued to offer kind words, saying it must have been hard. Relieved, I regained my composure and once again thanked him. He bashfully said, "Oh, stop it," and laughed, and the three of us were enveloped in a warm atmosphere. Well then, shall we give that stupid son of mine a piece of her mind? A piece of her mind? A penitent? Yeah, he has treated you horribly. We must make him apologize properly, or I won't be able to stand it.
Who the hell are you?
But there's something we need to discuss regarding Iris. I would like you to come to my home immediately.
Tom's voice was exceedingly loud, even without the speaker mode on. The way he addressed the person he was meeting for the first time was utterly disrespectful. I could feel a sense of disgust building up due to Mom's rudeness. "Just come," my father responded, somewhat surprised at his own stern tone, a rare deviation from his usually gentle demeanor. Tom seemed to have sensed the change too, as a hesitant gasp could be heard from his aunt. But with those final words, my father hung up the call unilaterally and handed the mobile back to Jones. Not too long after, my phone started buzzing relentlessly with incoming calls. I'll answer it. Doubt needs. But you're going to see him soon anyway. Touches. Just ignore it. My father advised, instructing me to switch off my phone, to which I obediently complied. It seems Tom lacked the courage to address the earlier conversation, instead choosing to confront me, a technique very much in his style. It was clear what he was thinking, making me sigh in disgust at this pathetic man. After a while, he arrived at my father's house, probably having received a location from Jones. Rushing in with his car, he began to complain incessantly as soon as he stepped inside. What the hell is this about? Et students be calling me to a place like this. WDC your place, he yelled, letting his anger loose the moment he entered. His screams were so loud that it distorted my face, yet he screamed not to care. Iris, why didn't you pick up the phone? DEDC. How dare you hang up on me after I called so many times? DATW. Do you think it's okay to treat me like that? His fierce tirade continued until my father stepped in front of me, shielding me from his rage. What's your problem, old man? Huck, move, you're in the way. Do not move. Stop hurling abuses at Iris, my father sternly warned. Sir, it's none of your business. Don't interfere in family matters, Tom retorted, clicking his tongue in annoyance. His behavior brought back traumatic memories, causing me to tremble fearfully. I tried to hide my trembling by hugging myself, but Jones comforted me by gently placing a hand on my back, helping me regain some composure. Nice to meet you. I'm Iris's father. My father introduced himself. What, father? Tom questioned, more with disbelief than surprise, as he fixed his skeptical gaze upon my father. Since I hadn't spoken about my father, he probably assumed that he had passed away. His disdainful demeanor was escalating, my anger gradually increasing. I am undeniably her father. If necessary, I would like to bring your family register. A quick check will reveal that Iris is indeed my daughter, my father responded assertively. That won't be necessary. So what was that call about? You want me to apologize to Iris? What am I supposed to apologize for? We are done. Can you please not call me so casually? I actually don't even want you to touch me. Iris, what are you saying? He couldn't believe I was resisting him. Ite, who had been living a fearful life because of Tom, showing such a reaction was at first like being bitten by a tame dog. He looked shocked and comical, and I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Oh, did you not hear? Shall I say it once again? I bent down next to the cowering man and whispered coldly in his ear, "Just seeing your face makes my skin crawl. Please disappear from my sight." To see you and purveying all the grudges and bitterness I had accumulated till now in these words, I stepped away from him. Looking at his face, I had turned pale, displaying a look of despair, as if he was seeing a nightmare. What followed happened in a flash. Tom, who had become a hollow shell, was taken away by Jones and scolded mercilessly. Both my father and I were astounded by Tom's well-deserved plight. Thus, I achieved my revenge on him and successfully severed ties. But to receive ample compensation, after the divorce, I hired a lawyer and took the case to court. I had recorded evidence of the numerous emotional abuses I had endured in a diary, and handed over the recordings I had saved for when the time came. He reportedly asked the lawyer to talk directly with me to settle, but I firmly refused. I don't want to see his face ever again. I had the message conveyed through the lawyer clearly, and I never met him face to face again. And in the court case, it was reported that I would almost certainly win, allowing me to live the rest of my life in peace. Citizens fired him for the crime of embezzlement and cut ties with him. He seems to have begged but was turned away at the gate. Afterward, I ended up living with my father. We continued to interact with his parents through my father, and now we're even closer than during my marital life. At first, I hesitated to live with my father. Just being a grown adult, relying on my father seemed perhaps ridiculous. My father, seeing my struggle, offered me words of comfort. If you're up for it, why not spend the rest of your life with me in your mother's house? And so, to make up for the lost time we couldn't spend together as a family, my father and I went on numerous trips, not just within the US but also abroad. We traveled all over the country, wanting to show my mother, who loved traveling, various sceneries. I carried her picture with me at all times, embarking on these journeys. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment.